It is finally time. The single most busted character available in Tactics Ogre Reborn has joined my ranks, and I am now legally allowed to talk about her. Today we're discussing Ozma Moh Glacius, how to recruit her, and what builds are good for her. Let's begin, shall we? Hello everybody, my name is Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman. I say it all the time, but if you haven't already and you enjoy my content, please subscribe. I'm trying to get to 15k subs by the end of the year, and as a small creator, I need all the help I can get. If you're already subscribed and you still want to help, a like helps a ton as well. Thank you for all the support. It may come as a surprise that a Knight Commander of the Dark Knights Lost Lorien would be willing to join your campaign, but the misdeeds of Ozma's commanding officers are great indeed. As such, after a lengthy series of events in the Law route, Ozma can in fact choose to join you. As I alluded to in the intro, you absolutely want her to do so, as Ozma is bar none the single most powerful character in the game. With insane speed, a unique finishing move, and not one but two great class options, well, I think it's pretty easy to see why. As usual, we'll discuss the spoiler-free steps to recruit this fiery warrior first, then we'll go over some builds. 4 builds. Most builds I've ever done in one of these videos. We'll talk recruitment first. To start, you must be on the Law route to eventually recruit Ozma. If you are, great. If you're not, well, you can always finish your current run, then go back and do Law using the world system. Either way, once you're on the Law route, proceed to Chapter 3. In the battle at the Archaeopolis of Rhyme, Hobyrim the Blind Swordmaster will be facing off with Ozma and a contingent of Bakram Knights. You must keep Hobyrim alive throughout this battle while defeating the bosses, and if you do, he will offer to join you after the dust settles. You should absolutely allow him to do so, as not only is he a very powerful warrior in his own right, he is also the key to later recruiting Ozma as well. If you're curious about how to best use Hobyrim, you can see some discussion of his potential builds in my video here, link in the description. Once you've recruited Hobyrim, you're clear to move on through the story until you reach Chapter 4. Once there, keep an eye on the Warren Report for an entry titled A Rift in the Dark Knights. Make sure you read this before you clear the battle at Mount Hedon. If you do not, you won't be able to proceed with the quest. Some scenes will play to show that you're on the right path. Then you may proceed to the Hagia Banhamuba to do battle with Sherry Farena. There's no special requirements here, just clear the battle. Afterwards, you're going to want to check Hobrim's loyalty to you and your cause. You need a loyalty score of 50 or higher, and so long as you haven't been getting him killed repeatedly and have been using him in battle regularly, this shouldn't be too much of a problem. You can check his loyalty by hovering your cursor over his name, which will display a loyalty message. If it says, this unit often speaks on your behalf to win others to your side, or this unit supports you in all things, a loyal ally to the end, then you're in the clear. If it instead says, more often than not, this unit speaks in support of your decisions, then you may be okay, but you may also want to do a couple of battles in training or in the Wildwood, and get some weapon rank ups to increase Hobrim's loyalty just a little bit. Once you're confident that Hobyrim is a happy little samurai, we can move on. The next step is to travel to Krysaro for what is possibly going to be a slightly more difficult battle than you're used to. So long as Hobyrim has good loyalty, the battle will trigger, and you'll find yourself facing off against a quite large, some might even say huge, contingent of Dark Knight Templar with commanders Volak and Ozma at their head. There are two important notes to make here. First, unsurprisingly, you must not kill Ozma during this fight, instead needing to reduce her to 10% HP or less. Second, you must bring Hobyrim into the battle to trigger important dialogue. Unfortunately, both Volak and Ozma are very nasty combatants, loaded with buff cards, unique finishers, and powerful ranged magic. Ozma also starts closer to you than any of the other enemies, so you're going to need to dance around her and keep her busy while you deal with her comrades. With all of that known, let's get prepared for a fight. Note as well that I did this using the world system, so while my level was synced down for the fight, I had access to characters and spells that you normally won't in your first run of Law. So if you are, I won't be able to give you my exact strategy. Instead, we're going to do some general tips and suggestions for the battle. First, of course, you need to have Hobyrim with you. Denim is also force deployed in this fight as usual, so you have 10 free slots to work with. Due to the AoE magic of the Knight Commanders, you're going to want plenty of AoE healing to match, as well as healing items on all of your characters and the Crystallized Flame consumable to increase your magic resistance. This way, even if Ozma is dropping avalanches on you left, right, and center, you can keep your team on their feet. Hopefully. I also recommend a Beast Tamer or other lobber unit to chuck debuffs at the bosses, attack debuffing items for Ozma, and defense debuffing items for Volak. Thanks to the large number of Templars and the narrow terrain, you may also find success bringing AoE mages or grenadiers to burn down clusters of enemies as they group up on the bridge and in the alley. Finally, having a few tanky frontliners like a Terror Knight with a +1 Claymore to inflict breach and fear on the bosses, a Knight with Phalanx to soak hits, or some dragons with Dragon Scale to do the same will all serve you well here. If possible, a dedicated status magic caster / debuff ninja with a Petrify Blow Dart will also be a godsend to try and keep Ozma suppressed, if you can get the attacks to land. Lastly, as I always suggest, make sure you have Blessing Stones on everyone. It's entirely likely that Ozma will randomly blow someone up with her unique Demon Rose finisher, and having a handy res available will save you time and frustration. Turn 1, Hobyrim will be offered a choice. Have him confirm that he is indeed Hobyrim to kick things off. On your first turns, you'll want to buff your team with their Crystallized Flames, heal any damage they take early, and start amassing MP by whatever means you have available, whether that be meditate triggers, items, all that type of good stuff. Ozma is going to go before anyone else, so you may take some damage before you can buff, but so be it. There's honestly not a whole lot to be done about it. Push forward into position, throwing some damage and debuffs Ozma's way as you go, and once you're in range, have your mages start hammering the Templars. You don't need to slay them all, but reducing their numbers and potentially picking off their healers will make it far easier to bring down Volak when the time comes. Once you are ready to try and do so, toss some debuffs his way, and lay into him with big single target spells, finishing moves, and whatever other damage you have. Ideally, you've got Ozma low on HP or otherwise suppressed by this point as well, as you'll want to drop her to 10% HP after you've dealt with Volak. You're outnumbered here, so do your best to keep the Templars funneled into the alleyway across the bridge or on the bridge itself if you can't move up fast enough. This will limit their ability to damage you by flanking your smaller force. If you find that you're having a hard time keeping up your healing in the face of AoE spells, you can also consider packing some Fairy Scale powder on your clerics to buff their healing power. This is a battle of attrition, so bunker down, keep Ozma alive, and seize your chance to drop Volak when an opening presents itself. If you do so, you'll find that the day is yours. Once the battle is won, some scenes will play out and another choice will be presented, this time for Denim. Choose "As I Owe You for My Father," quote unquote, and Ozma will join, bringing with her some Knight Commander class marks that only she can use. And with that, congratulations! You've successfully added the strongest playable character in Tactics Ogre Reborn to your roster. Ozma is a full 3 RT faster than speed demons like Hobyrim and Ravness, making her the fastest character in the game, and her personal class Knight Commander is truly just as scary in your hands as it is in those of the AI. Although, it is worth noting that you don't get the benefit of a full complement of buff cards at the start of each fight like when you're battling Knight Commanders, but I mean still, just at its pure base, very, 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 very strong. Statistically, Knight Commander has the lowest RT of all the classes in the game, which obviously pairs very well with Ozma's natural RT as well. It has above average growths in every stat other than MP, which shouldn't ever be an issue anyway, and in terms of equipment, Knight Commander can wield daggers, one-handed swords, two-handed swords, the Chaldea hammer, whips, and crossbows, and can wear the standard complement of medium and heavy armors. No alluring set here, unfortunately. When we look at the Knight Commander's skills, meanwhile, things only get crazier. We've got Pincer Attack, Double Attack, and Mighty Impact for dual-wield builds, Gordian Key, Shadow Break, First Aid, and Intimidate for battlefield support, Rampart Aura, Intercession, and Ivory Tower for tanking, and finally, some utility pieces with Dragon Slayer, Beast Slayer, and Concentration. Really, the only thing we're missing here is Meditate for finisher and spell spam, but, I mean, come on, does Ozma really need that? No, not really. Speaking of, Knight Commander can wield all 8 elements of magic, being able to cast the normal single-target and AoE spells, as well as single-target healing magic in the Divine family. Finally, Knight Commander also gives Ozma her unique whip finisher, Demon Rose, a ranged ice finisher that can charm on hit. It's a lot, man. Ozma is, like, actually insanely busted. With these facts in mind, there are a number of ways to build Ozma in Knight Commander alone, and we'll discuss 2 such builds here. However, not only does Ozma have what is likely the second most powerful class in the game, she also is one of only 4 characters who can be a White Knight, because of course she is. With her insanely low RT, she'll be able to proc Velocity Shift even more frequently than Ravenous, making her a great support option as well. Finally, there's also a slightly more unorthodox build that I like for story reasons as much as anything else. We'll get to that last. We'll start off with the Knight Commander builds. Our first Knight Commander build for Ozma is what I call the Mistress of Pain, wielding whips to best make use of her personal finisher, Demon Rose. This is an ice affinity build because our whip is ice and Demon Rose itself is ice, and it's not the most optimal build that you can do for Ozma. We'll talk about that in the next build, but it's quite powerful and it's quite fun. So let's go through what we have here. First of all is that cursed whip, Hoslow's End, named after the tale of House Hoslow, told in blood. And then pretty much just my best armor that I have on hand at the moment, Wormscale Helm and armor because it gives good strength and damage. We don't have a full set on her because she doesn't need a full set of Wormscale. She already comes with Dragon Slayer in Knight Commander, so she doesn't need it from this, but it's still just good armor to have. Overguard's +1, giving a good balance of defense and attack. Cloud Shoes, so she can easily navigate terrain, get around stuff, avoid Rampart Aura, navigate the Palace of the Dead, all that type of good nonsense. And the Earring of the Snake, as it is the whip earring, giving increased defenses across the board, as well as increased weapon level and, as such, damage. In terms of items, it's the standard array. We have a Mending Seed +1, a Blessing Stone, an Array and Plume for damage boosting, and a Fruit of the Adept for emergency healing and MP restoration. To go along with our Ice Affinity, we have Ice Blast 3, as well as Avalanche 2 and 3 for just adjustable MP cost and area of effect damage. And then Heal 2, because aftercare is important. For skills, we of course have our Whip's skill, and then because this is a build that really is meant to get into the thick of the enemy and just disrupt, cause damage, just generally be a problem and cause misery and agony on the other side of the board, we have Intimidate to remove skill conditions, take out things like Mighty Impact, Dragon Scale, all that type of good stuff. Intercession to make it harder for the enemy to deal damage to Ozma via magical effects, and Ivory Tower to make it harder for the enemy to cause damage to Ozma via physical attack. She just is meant to get in there, become a nuisance. Very powerful, very annoying. And then of course we do have our Demon's Rose finisher as well as our normal whip finishers as well, so that once she's got her MP charged up, she can just cause even more havoc with a massive amount of damage at range. And you'll see here, even despite all this heavy armor, RT of 72, blinding speed, absolutely devastatingly fast. That is in part due to the reduced RT of this cursed whip. You can get that on pretty much any cursed weapon if you have it maxed out. But I mean, it is also just Ozma and her class. It's disgusting. And you can see we also even have counterattack 4, so if anything tries to attack her while she's in the back line, she'll just slap them back with the whip. It's great. Again, this isn't the most optimal Ozma build. We're going to talk about that next, but I've been having an absolute blast with this build. It's a ton of fun. It wreaks all sorts of havoc, and I mean, really can't argue with the Mistress of Pain, right? Now consider, what if instead of just getting into the enemy backline and disrupting their forces and kind of being a lovely sadistic little woman, you wanted your Ozma to really get in there and get her vengeance. Well, that's where we have the Vengeance Seeker build that I put together. She really wants to just find her former commanders and strike them down for lying to her and for doing what they did to Hobyrim. As such, we've got a nice array of things going on here. First of all, we are Dark Element. You can't normally change Ozma to the Dark Element via charms. Knight Commander cannot be changed to Dark Element naturally. However, as with other such tricks for other such classes, if you change to Necromancer, you will automatically be switched to the Dark Element, and when you switch back to your preferred class, that element will stick if the other class doesn't have an element as well attached to it. You can also do this by changing to something like Terror Knight that is able to be the Dark Element and then using a charm on it, but if you have Necromancers, you'll save yourself a charm by just turning into a Necromancer and turning back, since they're forced into the Dark Element anyway. We want to be the Dark Element because we are dual-wielding swords, here being the Fafnir's Heart, A relic sword that is itself a dark element and has anti-dragon properties. So once again, we really don't even need to worry about equipping Dragon Slayer unless you're really trying to be able to kill everything. Our armor is exactly the same as previous, except now we have the Guardsman's Earring to synergize with our one-handed swords rather than our whips. And just this on its own deals a disgusting amount of damage. If we actually look at the Fafnir's Heart here, you'll see you can cast Word of Pain 3 with it 3 times, so that's 6 free casts of the Word of Pain 3 without any MP cost. On hit, you'll inflict Dark Averse, which is obviously very good when everything you're doing is dark, and it gives you Parry 3. So you're going to have a lot of resilience, you're going to be quite tough to bring down, have good free-ranged capabilities, you're going to be buffing your own damage by debuffing the enemy. It's just very, very strong on its face. Then, of course, we have the same items that we did before, because this is, again, a melee, physical-based class, so don't really need to go over that again. And I've swapped out our ice spells for dark spells. It's going to be a rare occurrence that you need to actually cast your spells when you have 6 free casts of Word of Pain 3 with your swords, but you know you might want some AoE, stuff like that, and then a little bit of healing, because, again, aftercare is important. The big difference here, other than our swords, is that we've switched our skills up, and this is what can actually make this build extremely disgusting. We have, of course, one-handed swords, double attack, so we can hit with both of those swords simultaneously, and the real kicker, which synergizes with double attack, Mighty Impact. Automatic criticals with 100% accuracy. This applies to both swings when you double attack. So you can pop Mighty Impact and get 2 back-to-back guaranteed criticals on whatever poor sap you choose to target. It's overwhelmingly likely that all but the tankiest of targets will be instantly destroyed by this combination of abilities. And even if they're not, they are going to be easy pickings for whoever comes afterwards. This combination alone is pretty much what sends this build over the top, especially because, you know, dual-wielding swords is heavy. Double attack reduces your RT a lot, but Ozma's speed is so good that she still has under 100 RT. She's significantly slower than with my Mistress of Pain build, but the raw damage output that you're going to have is absolutely worth it. The ability to bring down priority targets with this is unquestionably strong. Then, of course, we also have pincer attack, because you're going to be in the middle of the enemies anyway. You may as well be able to get some free attacks in here and there if you've got Ozma behind something that you attack with somebody else. It really can't be beat. Now, notably, you are not going to be able to benefit from some of the elemental affinities of our different finishers here. They are ice and light, respectively, but I mean, honestly, you're probably not using your finishers with this build. You're probably putting all of your MP into Mighty Impact and just double attacking things into the dirt. So, it's pretty awesome, and I mean, again, there's no charms or anything in Ozma right now. She's just got 929 and 915 flat with these swords. It's dumb. It's very dumb, and it's very strong. So that is the Vengeance Seeker build. But maybe Ozma isn't the Mistress of Pain anymore. Maybe she's not seeking vengeance. Maybe you have something a little bit different going on. Maybe she's seeking redemption instead. That's where our third build is going to come in with White Knight Ozma, in case you just really wanted that little bit of extra support. So, what do we have going on here? Rather than being the dark element, we are now of the light element, and we're still handling one-handed swords, but this time we've got the Brynhildr instead, because, I mean, it's pretty much the best light element sword that you're going to get. And this is a sword and board build, because this is going to be a tank build. So we have a shield. I just have the Shield of Storms because it's good. It's one of my best shields right now. There's definitely better options that you can find, but pretty much any shield will suffice. Again, armor is still the same. We even still have the Guardsman's Earring, very easy. Items are the same as well, but we've swapped out our damage-dealing dark spells for healing spells for when we need them. The main kicker here is, again, that Ozma has very low RT. 100 RT, even in White Knight, very good, and so we're making the best use of that we can. This is a classic White Knight build. We've got swords, velocity shift, so she can be reducing the RT of the rest of your team very quickly, because she, of course, does have very low RT herself. Rampart Aura, so she can stand on the front line and tank as needed, and Guardian Force for the extra damage mitigation. Notably as well, we have the best base stats as we possibly can. Like, this is actually a much higher base stat class than Knight Commander is, so you have a lot of benefits for just being on the front line and being able to soak hits. There's nothing special about this compared to, say, any other White Knight like Ravnus or Gildas, but Ozma's very, 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 very high speed makes her the best at it in class. Do you want to run this over Knight Commander? Probably not unless you're going for a specific White Knight build, but it's there if you want it. Finally, we have our more interesting from a lore idea roleplay standpoint build, but I really like it. I think that there is actually some viability here for Ozma. This is what I call the Wandering Rose, and it is a Swordmaster build. Maybe Ozma doesn't care about inflicting pain anymore. Maybe she doesn't want vengeance, and maybe she doesn't want redemption. Maybe all she wants is to wander the roads with Hobyrim. To accommodate that, she has taken up the way of the katana, taking on his tutelage, and there's actually some fun stuff that we can do here. So, I've changed her back to ice to complement Hobrim's natural fire, and given her the bead-bound blade because it is the ice-inflicting katana. It gives Ice Averse, Ice Blast 3, Counterattack 2, good synergy with its damage because of her own element, all that type of good stuff. Then she has a Balderhelm +1, the Alluring Dress, Damascus Mitts, and the Alluring High Boots, all with the intention of boosting her mind, because this is a build that's going to try to make the best use that it can of war dances, specifically debuffing war dances. She also has the Sunfire Earring because it is the two-handed katana earring. Her standard array of items, I don't believe there are any items that actually make it easier to land your war dances. If there are, please let me know in the comments because I just am not aware. And then again, the big thing here is our war dances. So we have Lion Dance to strengthen herself, Hobyrim, and whoever else might be along for the ride. Harvest Dance for some emergency healing. And then the key factors, Comely Dance, that inflicts breached on multiple nearby enemies, can be very strong if you can get it to land. And Bedeviling Dance, that slows multiple nearby enemies. Again, obviously very strong if you can get it to land. Now, of course, we are going to want to be on the front lines with this build, because that's where we DR damage as Swordmaster, and also because we want to be able to have a lot of enemies around us to inflict these debuffs on. So we have two-handed katanas, Falling Blade for when we just really need to destroy something rather than debuffing it, Mind's Eye 2, allowing us to evade up to 3 melee attacks until the next turn, and Mighty Strike for, again, synergy with Falling Blade, so we can just pick something and destroy it, especially if it's already been breached. This, I do think, could be quite the good build. Really, just if you buff up your mind and can land these dances more often, it'll be quite useful. And again, that low RT, 89, you're going to be able to go very quickly, much more often, and try and debuff many more enemies. So, is it the most powerful thing that you can do with Ozma? No. No, it's not. But I think it's fun. And there is something to be said for that. And that, my friends, has to be a record for the greatest number of builds that I've ever discussed in one video. Wow, that, man, it's a lot. But at the end of the day, if there's a character who deserves it, it's got to be Ozma. The sheer versatility that she brings to the table with her RT and her personal class just cannot be beat, and I'm sure there's plenty of other options out there that I didn't discuss here. If you have one such build that you'd like to share, or you have any thoughts about anything I've discussed here, strike up a conversation in the comments. One of my favorite things to do on these videos is discuss builds and gameplay with y'all, and I'm sure there's still plenty more to say here. That said, in terms of the video, I'm going to wrap this one up here. Again, my name is Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman. I hope you enjoy using Ozma. Have a good night, stay safe and healthy out there, and remember, be good to each other. Bye now.